Welcome to 15-Minute Discourse, the show where we take a deep dive into, well, all sorts of fascinating topics and knowledge guided by your sources. Today, we're going on a lunar adventure.
To the moon.
Yeah, exploring moon bases. We've got a whole bunch of articles and research excerpts.
Oh, wow.
You shared them with us, all focused on moon bases.
It seems like you're really curious about building and living on the moon.
It really does, yeah.
And thankfully, these sources provide a lot of information on that.
It's like we've got blueprints for a lunar future. So where do we even begin with something like building a moon base? Are there any, plans or frameworks in place?
Well, there are actually two main paths being explored right now. One is the Artemis Accords.
Right.
It's a U.S.-led thing, but it has a lot of international partners, and it aims to establish some guidelines for responsible lunar exploration and resource utilization.
So kind of like setting the rules of the road for the lunar frontier.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, cool. What's the other approach?
The other approach is the International Lunar Research Station, or the ILRS for short.
Okay.
And that's a collaborative effort, and this one is led by China and Russia.
Okay.
And they're taking a more research-focused approach, emphasizing international cooperation and scientific discovery.
Okay, so two different visions, but ultimately both leading to humans on the moon.
Yeah.
Before we get into those details, let's talk about the moon itself.
Sure.
What are some of the basic advantages and disadvantages we need to consider when planning for lunar habitation?
Well, gravity is a big one.
Okay.
The moon's gravity is about 1/6 of Earth's,
Right.
which, could have pros and cons. Lower gravity might make construction and movement easier, but we still don't fully understand the long-term effects of reduced gravity on the human body.
So our bones and muscles might not be too happy about living on the moon.
They might not be, no.
What about radiation? I know the Earth's atmosphere protects us from a lot of the harmful radiation from space. Does the moon have any of that?
Unfortunately not. The moon lacks a substantial atmosphere and a global magnetic field.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty much exposed to solar and cosmic radiation. That means any lunar habitat would need serious shielding.
Yeah, to protect the inhabitants.
For sure.
That sounds like a major design challenge.
It is.
Let's look on the bright side. What about resources? Does the moon have anything to offer in terms of building materials or energy or even water?
Here's where things get interesting. Lunar regolith.
Okay.
That's the loose, dusty material that covers the moon's surface. It's surprisingly rich in resources. It contains oxygen, silicon, and other elements, which could be extracted and used for construction, life support, and even rocket propellant.
I've read about the possibility of 3D printing habitats using lunar regolith.
Yeah.
Is that something that's actually feasible?
It's a fascinating concept, and research is already underway to make it a reality.
Wow.
The idea is to use robotic 3D printers to build structures directly from the lunar regolith.
So you wouldn't have to transport heavy building materials from Earth.
Exactly, yeah.
There must be challenges, though.
Oh, yeah, of course. There are technical challenges like finding the right binders to hold the regolith together and developing methods to melt and process the material in the lunar environment.
So it's like turning the moon into a giant 3D printing workshop.
Basically, yeah.
But how would we power all of this? Where will we get the energy for a lunar base?
Well, solar power seems like the most obvious choice. The moon receives tons of sunlight,
Yeah.
and with no atmosphere to block those rays, solar panels could generate a significant amount of energy.
Wouldn't there be issues with the long lunar nights, though?
Yeah, that's true.
And what about backup power sources in case of emergencies?
You raise a valid point. Solar power would need to be supplemented with energy storage systems
Okay.
to provide continuous power during the lunar night, which lasts about 14 Earth days.
Right, right.
There's also the possibility of utilizing nuclear power, particularly radioisotope thermoelectric generators. These devices convert the heat from radioactive decay into electricity,
Wow.
providing a reliable and long-lasting source of power.
That sounds incredibly efficient. But
Mhm.
wouldn't using nuclear power on the moon raise some safety concerns?
It's definitely a factor to consider. Any deployment of nuclear power on the moon would require rigorous safety protocols and international oversight.
That makes sense, yeah. We talk about building materials and energy, but what about water? I remember reading about the discovery of water ice on the moon. Could that be a game changer for lunar habitation?
Absolutely, yeah. The presence of water ice has been confirmed by several missions in recent years, and it has huge implications for life support and resource utilization on the moon. Water can be split into hydrogen and oxygen, providing both breathable air and fuel for rockets.
So we could potentially create a self-sustaining lunar ecosystem.
Yeah, potentially.
That's amazing. But how do we actually get all of this equipment, and most importantly, people to the moon, in the first place? It's not exactly a short trip.
Yeah. No, it's not. Transportation is a major hurdle. For the Artemis program, NASA is developing the Orion spacecraft for crew transport, the Starship HLS for lunar landings, and the Lunar Gateway, which is a space station that will orbit the moon and serve as a hub for lunar missions.
The Lunar Gateway. Can you explain a bit more about what that is and how it fits into the whole lunar transportation system?
Yeah, sure. Imagine it as a kind of orbiting outpost,
Okay.
a stepping stone between Earth and the lunar surface. The Gateway will provide a platform for docking spacecraft, conducting research, and assembling lunar landers. It'll also serve as a communication relay and a safe haven in case of emergencies.
That sounds incredibly ambitious. And speaking of ambitious ideas, I've always been fascinated by the concept of a lunar space elevator. Is that something that's remotely feasible?
The idea is both captivating and daunting. A lunar space elevator would be a tether extending from the moon's surface to a point in space where the Earth's gravity and the moon's centrifugal force balance each other out. Cargo and even passengers could then travel up and down this tether, making transportation between Earth and the moon significantly easier and more efficient.
It's like something straight out of science fiction.
I know, right?
What are some of the technological hurdles we need to overcome to make a lunar space elevator a reality?
The biggest challenge is finding a material strong enough to withstand the immense stresses involved. We're talking about a cable that's tens of thousands of kilometers long, subjected to extreme temperatures and micrometeoroid impacts.
That sounds like a material scientist's dream, or
Hmm.
maybe their worst nightmare. But let's imagine for a moment that we've solved the transportation problem. We've got people and equipment on the moon. What about the human side of lunar living?
Right.
How will people adapt to life in such a harsh and isolated environment?
That's where things get really interesting and where we'll need to shift our focus from the technological marvels to the human experience of living on the moon.
Yeah.
While a space elevator might solve transportation challenges, we can't forget about the people who will actually be living and working on the moon. Adapting to life in such a harsh and isolated environment will be a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it's like taking a giant leap for humankind, both physically and psychologically. What are some of the biggest challenges we'll face in terms of human health and well-being on the moon?
Lunar dust is a major concern.
Okay.
It's incredibly fine and abrasive, and it gets everywhere. Inhaling lunar dust can lead to respiratory problems and other health complications. The Apollo astronauts experienced this firsthand with reports of sneezing fits and eye irritation.
So it's more than just a nuisance, it's a potential health hazard. What are some of the ways we can mitigate the risks associated with lunar dust?
Designing habitats with effective air filtration systems will be crucial. We'll also need to develop specialized spacesuits and equipment that minimize dust accumulation and transfer. And of course, ongoing research into the long-term effects of lunar dust exposure will be essential to develop preventative measures and treatments.
It sounds like lunar dust is going to be a constant battle. What about the psychological impact of living on the moon? Being isolated in such a confined and alien environment must take a toll on mental health.
You're absolutely right. The psychological challenges of lunar living can't be underestimated.
Yeah.
We're talking about prolonged isolation, confinement, and exposure to a harsh and unforgiving environment. The lack of natural light and the disruption of our normal circadian rhythms could also have significant impacts on mood and sleep patterns.
So it's not just about building sturdy structures. We need to create a living environment that supports psychological well-being. How do we do that?
Designing habitats that provide a sense of space and incorporate elements of nature will be important. Think green spaces, natural lighting, and even simulated views of Earth. We'll also need to prioritize social interaction, create opportunities for meaningful work and recreation, and ensure regular communication with loved ones back home.
It's like building a little piece of Earth on the moon, a sanctuary where people can thrive both physically and mentally. Now let's talk about food.
Okay.
Will we be relying on shipments from Earth, or is there a way to grow food on the moon?
Growing food on the moon is a challenge, but not an insurmountable one.
Okay.
Research has shown that some plants can sprout and grow in lunar regolith, although it lacks many of the nutrients essential for plant growth. We'll need to develop specialized fertilizers and perhaps even genetically modify crops to thrive in the lunar environment.
So lunar farming could become a reality. What would a lunar farm look like?
Imagine enclosed, controlled environment greenhouses, perhaps even underground, to shield crops from radiation. We'd need to create artificial lighting, carefully control temperature and humidity, and develop efficient water recycling systems. It would be a high-tech operation, but the rewards would be immense.
Fresh, locally grown produce on the moon. Sign me up. But even if we can grow food, lunar life is still going to be pretty different from life on Earth. How will people get around? Will we be driving moon buggies everywhere?
Well, those iconic Apollo lunar roving vehicles hold a special place in our hearts.
Yeah.
The Artemis program envisions even more advanced transportation options. There's the Lunar Terrain Vehicle, a more modern and robust rover for short-distance travel, and then there's the concept of pressurized rovers.
Pressurized rovers. What are those?
Think of them as mini mobile habitats equipped with life support systems,
Okay.
allowing astronauts to venture farther from the base and conduct multi-day expeditions. They'd provide a safe and comfortable environment for exploring the lunar landscape.
So it's like a lunar RV.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's amazing. But all this talk of resources, habitats, and rovers makes me wonder about the legal side of things. Who owns the moon anyway, and who gets to decide how its resources are used?
The politics of space. It's a complex and fascinating territory. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty, signed by over 100 countries, lays out some basic principles.
Okay.
It prohibits national appropriation of celestial bodies and emphasizes the peaceful use of outer space.
So no one country can claim ownership of the moon. But what about resources? Can anyone just go up there and start mining?
That's where things get a bit murky. The Outer Space Treaty is somewhat vague when it comes to resource utilization. The Artemis Accords, with its concept of safety zones, has sparked debate about whether it's a way to assert control over lunar resources.
Safety zones. Can you explain that a bit more?
Essentially, the Artemis Accords allow nations to establish zones around their lunar operations where other activities are restricted. Proponents argue that this is necessary to prevent interference and ensure the safety of their missions. Critics worry that it's a way to claim exclusive rights to resources within those zones, potentially undermining the spirit of international cooperation in space.
It sounds like there's a lot of potential for conflict as more nations and even private companies set their sights on the moon. Is there a way to ensure that lunar exploration and development benefit all of humanity?
It's a question that demands careful consideration and international dialogue.
Yeah.
We need to find a way to balance national interests with the common good to ensure that lunar resources are used responsibly and sustainably, and to avoid turning the moon into another arena for geopolitical competition.
It's a delicate balance for sure. We've covered so much ground already, from the technical challenges of building moon bases to the human side of lunar living and the complex politics of space. And we haven't even touched on the potential for scientific discoveries on the moon.
Yeah, it's true. We barely scratched the surface when it comes to the scientific potential of the moon.
What kind of discoveries could we make by having like a permanent research presence on the moon?
The moon is like a time capsule,
Oh,
preserving billions of years of solar system history. By studying its geology, we can learn about the formation of planets, the bombardment period early in the solar system's history, and perhaps even find clues about the origins of life itself.
it's like having this giant laboratory right in our celestial backyard.
Exactly, yeah.
What are some of the specific areas of research that scientists are most excited about?
One area that's particularly intriguing is the South Pole Aitken Basin.
Yeah.
It's one of the largest and oldest impact craters in the solar system, and it's thought to expose material from the moon's deep interior. Studying this basin could provide insights into the moon's composition and evolution that we could never obtain from Earth-based observations.
It's like peering into the heart of the moon. Are there any other unique features or regions on the moon that scientists are eager to explore?
The lunar poles, with their permanently shadowed craters, are also of great interest. These craters are thought to contain vast reserves of water ice, which could be a vital resource for future lunar missions. They also offer a unique environment for studying the effects of extreme cold and darkness on materials and potential life forms.
It's fascinating to think that we might find evidence of life, even if it's microbial, right here in our own solar system. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the more practical aspects of living on the moon.
Okay.
We've discussed transportation and resources, but what about the actual habitats? What will lunar homes look like?
The sources you provided describe some really innovative concepts for lunar habitats. One that stands out is the foundational surface habitat. It's envisioned as the initial dwelling structure for lunar residents, providing living quarters, work areas, and life support systems.
So it's like the first lunar apartment complex?
Yeah, something like that.
What are some of the key design considerations for these habitats?
Functionality and safety are paramount, of course. But we also need to consider the psychological well-being of the inhabitants.
Yeah, for sure.
Creating a sense of space, incorporating natural light as much as possible, and providing opportunities for privacy and relaxation will be crucial for long-term lunar habitation.
It sounds like we need to find a balance between creating a functional and efficient base and making it a place where people can actually feel at home. Are there any plans for incorporating elements of nature or even art into lunar habitats?
That's a great question, and one that designers are already exploring. Incorporating green spaces, water features, and even art installations could help create a more welcoming and stimulating environment, fostering a sense of community and connection to Earth.
It's inspiring to think that we could bring a touch of beauty and humanity to the lunar landscape. Now let's talk about exploration beyond the base. We'll need some serious vehicles to venture out and uncover the secrets of the moon.
Absolutely. The sources highlight the Lunar Terrain Vehicle, or LTV, which is designed for transporting astronauts and cargo around the base. It's a more rugged and versatile version of the Apollo-era lunar rovers.
Perfect for lunar off-roading. But what about longer-range expeditions?
For those pressurized rovers are the key. These sophisticated vehicles would offer a more comfortable and protected environment for extended explorations, allowing astronauts to travel farther and stay out for days or even weeks at a time.
It's like a lunar RV equipped with all the necessities for a scientific road trip. All of this is incredible, but let's be realistic. Building and maintaining a moon base is going to be incredibly expensive and complex.
Yeah.
Is it really worth the effort? What are the potential benefits for humanity?
That's a fundamental question. The economic benefits of lunar resources are still uncertain, but the scientific and technological advancements alone could justify the investment. The moon offers a unique environment for research in fields ranging from astronomy and astrophysics to material science and even medicine.
So it's about pushing the boundaries of knowledge and expanding our understanding of the universe.
Precisely. It's about investing in our future not just in terms of material resources, but also in terms of inspiration and innovation. A moon base would be a testament to human ingenuity, a symbol of our capacity to overcome challenges and explore new frontiers.
It's about that unquenchable human desire to explore the unknown, to push beyond our limits and discover what lies beyond the horizon.
Exactly. It's about the spirit of discovery, the drive to learn and grow, and the belief that there's always more to explore, more to understand, more to achieve.
This deep dive into the world of moon bases has been absolutely fascinating. We've covered so much ground, from the technical challenges to the human and scientific possibilities. I have to say I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the future of lunar settlement.
I share your optimism. The challenges are daunting, but the potential rewards are immense. With careful planning, international cooperation, and a healthy dose of human ingenuity, I believe we can make a moon base a reality and usher in a new era of exploration and discovery.
This has been a truly enlightening journey. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of moon bases. If you enjoyed this episode of 15-Minute Discourse, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, and tell a friend about the show. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic you're passionate about. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those questions coming.
Yeah, it really is. It seems like there are just endless opportunities for discovery on the moon.
Absolutely. The moon offers a unique environment for research in so many different areas: astronomy, astrophysics, materials, science, and even medicine.
It's incredible to think about all we can learn. But let's shift gears a little bit. We've talked about transportation, the challenges, resources, but what about the actual habitats themselves? What are lunar homes going to look like?
Well, the sources you provided describe some innovative concepts for lunar habitats. One that really stands out is the foundational surface habitat.
Okay.
It's envisioned as the initial dwelling structure for lunar residents. It'll provide living quarters, work areas, and of course, life support systems. So it's like the first lunar apartment complex.
Yeah, you could say that.
What are some of the key design considerations for these habitats? What do we need to think about when designing a lunar home?
Well, functionality and safety are paramount, of course.
Right.
But, we also need to consider the psychological well-being of the inhabitants, creating a sense of space, incorporating natural light as much as possible, and providing opportunities for privacy and relaxation will be really crucial for long-term lunar habitation.
It sounds like we need to find a balance between creating a functional and efficient base and making it a place where people can actually feel at home. Are there any plans for incorporating elements of nature or even art into these lunar habitats?
That's a great question, and it's something that designers are already exploring. Incorporating things like green spaces, water features, and even art installations could really help create a more welcoming and stimulating environment. And in turn, that would foster a sense of community and connection to Earth.
It's inspiring to think that we could bring a touch of beauty and humanity to the lunar landscape. Now, let's talk about exploration beyond the base. We'll need vehicles to venture out and uncover the secrets the moon holds.
Absolutely, yeah. The sources highlight the Lunar Terrain Vehicle, or LTV.
Okay.
It's designed for transporting astronauts and cargo around the base, and it's a more rugged and versatile version of the Apollo-era lunar rovers.
Perfect for lunar off-roading.
Yeah.
What about longer-range expeditions, though? How are we going to handle those?
For those, pressurized rovers will be key.
Okay.
These sophisticated vehicles would offer a more comfortable and protected environment for extended explorations, allowing astronauts to travel farther and stay out for days or even weeks at a time.
It's like having a lunar RV equipped with all the necessities for a scientific road trip. All of this is incredible, but let's be realistic for a second. Building and maintaining a moon base is going to be incredibly expensive and complex. Is it really worth all the effort? What are the potential benefits for humanity? Why are we doing this?
That's the fundamental question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The economic benefits of lunar resources are still uncertain, but the scientific and technological advancements alone could definitely justify the investment.
Okay.
The moon offers this unique environment for research in so many different fields ranging from astronomy and astrophysics to material science and even medicine.
So it's about pushing the boundaries of knowledge and expanding our understanding of the universe.
Exactly. It's about investing in our future, not just in terms of material resources, but also in terms of inspiration and innovation. A moon base would be a testament to human ingenuity, a symbol of our capacity to overcome challenges and explore new frontiers.
It's about that unquenchable human desire to explore the unknown, to push beyond our limits and discover what lies beyond the horizon.
It is. It's about the spirit of discovery, the drive to learn and grow, and the belief that there's always more to explore, more to understand, and more to achieve.
This deep dive into the world of moon bases has been absolutely fascinating. We've covered so much ground, from the technical challenges to the human and scientific possibilities. I have to say, I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the future of lunar settlement.
I share your optimism. The challenges are daunting, but the potential rewards are immense. With careful planning, international cooperation, and a healthy dose of human ingenuity, I believe we can make a moon base a reality and usher in a new era of exploration and discovery.
This has been a truly enlightening journey. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of moon bases. If you enjoyed this episode of 15-Minute Discourse, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, and tell a friend about the show. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic you're passionate about. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those questions coming.